Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a great day. Today I'm going to be doing the unboxing and hopefully first welds with the Arccaptain 135A welder. I picked this up from Amazon for about $110 and it's supposed to be an easy to use basic weld machine for beginners like myself. I plan to use this on the 1975 Camaro to weld some subframe connectors and do some exhaust pipe welding and maybe some miscellaneous brackets here and there. This machine is capable of doing MIG, stick, and lift TIG, and it's supposed to weld up to 1/4 inch steel, although with the 15-20 amp household current I have, 3/16 is probably the practical limit. I also picked up this portable welding table from Walmart for $65. It's a little bit wobbly. It definitely will not hold up for any kind of serious fabrication work, but for $65 I think it'll serve my purposes pretty well. So let's get into the unboxing, see what's inside here. Okay, so the first thing is the MIG torch, some nozzles, you get some flux core welding wire, cleaning brush, some kind of strap, this must be the grounding clamp cable. Another grounding clamp cable. And the welder itself. I'm going to lower this here. So here's the machine itself. Here's the front of the machine with the controls. And the instructions. So I'm going to try to figure out how to set this up and hopefully get to some welding. Hey everyone, I think I just made a typical rookie mistake. I cut the wire on the end of the spool and I let it go and it just unraveled uncontrollably, and now I have this gigantic bird's nest that I have to fix before I can continue. So I'm letting you guys know about this now, so when you do it for the first time, when you cut the end of the wire from the spool, hold it with your fingers and make sure you don't let it unravel till you get it into the machine, and make tension on it so that it's held tight. So I learned this the hard way and I'm gonna have to fix this before I continue. Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a great day. Last time I had a mishap with the flux core wire unraveling off the spool because I didn't know that I had to hold it. Now is another day and I'm going to try to feed the wire into the feed mechanism and hopefully get started with some welding. I have my flux core wire spool here and it's going to go onto this spindle. So in order to get it off the spindle, I have to remove the wing nut with the spring and the contact plate. And here's the spindle for the spool. The wire is going to feed into this nozzle, and this is the wire tensioning mechanism. Just turn the knob counterclockwise and pivot it forward out of the way, then this arm will pivot up, and that exposes the wire pulley. In order to get the wire pulley off, you've got to turn this knob counterclockwise a 1/4 turn and the pulley can come off. The pulley has two grooves, one for 30 thousandths wire and one for 35 thousandths wire. The pulley is marked with a 0.8 on one side and a 0.9 on the other. The 0.8 corresponds to the 30 thousandths and the 0.9 corresponds to the 35 thousandths. Here are the two grooves. I'm using 30 thousandths wire, so I'm going to put the pulley on such that the 0.8 is facing towards the front. So it just goes on to these square shaft. Then to put the retaining knob, you just turn it clockwise, a quarter turn, so that the notch is facing upward, allowing the pulley to be exposed. We have to put the wire spool on such that the wire will feed from the bottom to give it a clean, straight shot into the nozzle. So I'm going to put it onto the spindle now. Put the contact plate on, and then the wing nut. As you tighten the wing nut, it'll apply spring pressure to the spool and give it the right amount of spin. I don't know how much that is. I'm just going to tighten it down a few turns and see how it spins. It's a pretty firm spin now. I think that's going to work. You don't want it to spin too freely because then the wire will start to unravel. The next step is to pull it out of the hole while holding it to keep it from unraveling. So there's the spool, and I'm going to thread it into this nozzle. So, and just push it through. And you can see the wire there going into the pulley. So I'm going to try to get it into the groove and thread it into this second nozzle. I have the screwdriver here to help me guide the wire. And now I have to get it into this second nozzle. Almost got it there. There it goes. So I'm going to feed the wire through both nozzles, and now it's coming out the front where I'm going to attach the MIG torch. Okay, so the next step is to flip this arm down, engage the tensioner, and tighten it down. I don't know how much tension it's supposed to apply. I'm just going to give it a good turn and go from there. So the next step is to hook up the MIG gun and hook up the power and start welding. Hi everyone. Before I start welding, I'd like to go over a few quick notes on preparing the metal plates for welding. I got this box of around 20 steel plates from Amazon for around $20, and it contains around 20 of these 4x2 inch 11 gauge steel plates. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and carbon steel plates, when you receive them, are usually covered in either rust or a flaky scale, or in this case a smooth oxidized coating. I think they call it mill scale, and it's medium to dark grain appearance. It's smooth, and it's just a thin layer on top of the base metal. And to get the best weld quality, it's good to remove this layer before you start welding. So what I did was I got a vise from Harbor Freight. This little vise cost $22 plus tax, and it clamps to the bottom of the table like this. And it's not super sturdy, but it's good enough for this. And then you can just clamp your steel plate into here, and you're good to go. So I had this grinder, this angle grinder that I bought from Walmart about 5 years ago. It's probably about $40. And I have this abrasive grinding wheel. that I used to initially remove the majority of the mill scale. Then I finished it up with this sanding flap disc to give it a nice, smooth, clean finish. Of course, got to have safety glasses, and I had my work gloves, and the finished steel plates look pretty clean, came out like this, and I think I'm ready to weld. So the next step is to set up the torch, feed the wire through, and start welding. Now it's time to hook up the flux core MIG gun to the MIG machine. I took off the nozzle and contact tip, and I'm going to plug the electrical connection into the machine. I left some wire out so that I can get started on the feed, and now I just got to line up the notch, and it just pushes in. Okay. Then this plug goes in. I think it's the controls to tell it when to feed the wire. So that's in. Now I'm going to hang this on the handle back here so that it doesn't touch anything. And now to hook up the ground clamp. This one is just a simple electrical connection. And I'm going to clamp it to the table near where my welding plate is. So I'm going to clamp it right here. I think that's a good connection. So now I'm ready to plug it in and see if it feeds the wire. So I'm going to pull the trigger, and it should turn. Oh, I need to turn the power switch on. So now I'm going to pull the trigger, and it's feeding the wire. So I'm going to keep feeding it until it sticks out the tip. Okay, it's jammed. I got the wire feed going smoothly. I got the torch hooked up. I have the machine settings to flux core 0.030 inch. Control mode is 2T. Now this machine has one control button that you push to toggle through different modes. I toggled through the thickness mode, and I adjusted the thickness to 0.12 inch, and then it self-adjusts to 17.7 volts. So I think that's the setting that I'm going to use for this. I'm going to put on the helmet, and we'll see if we can get this going. Okay, the first result is pretty ugly. I have zero control over this, so I'm going to need a lot more practice to get a good straight bead. But that's all it takes, practice and effort. So here's my first try. As you can see at the beginning, I had zero control and I was just splattering it all over the place. After about 2 or 3 tries, I was able to lay down sort of a bead, but this is going to take a lot more practice. So I'm going to keep practicing over the next few days, and when I can lay down a decent bead, I'll try to do a T-weld and we'll see if I can show that on the video. Hi everyone, this is day 2 of my practice and I think I'm getting a very slight improvement. I'm getting a little bit better at controlling it and I'm able to lay down some fairly straight beads. I got some 12-inch long plates, which gives me a little bit more room to practice. I also increased the voltage a little bit and I think that gives it a little bit better of a weld puddle. I think I'm to the point where maybe I can attempt a T-weld in a few days, and when I do that I might show it in a future video. Until then, I hope you guys have a great week and I'll see you soon.